So I've got these kind of high expectations of Wally Hicks now that he's our new legal counsel, especially after 2 decades of Steve Rich County Legal Counsel. So I called Wally while he was running, and I said, we've just got so many things that the county's been doing that have been just flat out illegal. As a matter of fact, Steve Rich, the old county council, had said, well, don't worry about that because the state's not enforcing the law. Really? And at one point, the commissioners were talking about some kind of thing that they felt they needed to do to keep the public safe. And Steve Rich advised them, we have a video about this, Steve Rich advised them not to find out if certain buildings were safe or not, keeping the public safe, because once they knew whether they were or not, which I think is their duty, then they could be potentially liable. So he told them, his advice was, official advice on tape, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what if you somehow don't admit, if it's on the record anywhere in minutes or whatever that they had a discussion that where the words ignorance is bliss in reference to this thing you're talking about, they could certainly be held liable for that situation because they had knowledge of it, I would think.
It's also interesting, this happens all the time, I'm sitting there with a camera. It's pointed at them. And legal counsel is advised, ignorance is bliss. Wait a minute. So I brought that up at a weekly business session, and I repeated his statement. And Simon Hare just got all over me. Why, this is irrelevant. Hey, wait a minute. This is my turn to talk. What do you mean it's irrelevant? It's irrelevant, and you should stop immediately. That's just confusing.
Well,
we were going to talk about Wally Hicks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it seems as though if you may be lulled into a false sense of security by the fact that the state apparently doesn't or selectively enforces the laws, as it relates to county matters.
We've actually caught them on tape doing something which is blatantly illegal. Not always in the little back room, sometimes in the Ann Basker, and I've sent the tape to the state, to the right people, and they've actually admitted, yes, that's illegal. And I said, okay, now, we're just old citizens, what is the solution? Well, we're having a debate here, about whether or not we want to enforce the law. What?
Well, interesting thing, my son just got a ticket today for jaywalking. Walking across the street, $130, okay, which he intends to fight or whatever, and it's irrelevant. The bottom line is that if he was jaywalking, which I suspect he was, we all probably do that at one point or another, and he's going to get dinged the $130 or whatever. What, if ever, is the penalty for violating the law if you're a public servant in the manner that you're suggesting that they have?
Well, at this moment, because people ask this all the time, what can we do? There's all kinds of people on this date, the day before Simon Hare sworn in, who are saying, well, what can we possibly do about Simon Hare and his transgressions? And I said, well, you can come to a meeting and show your displeasure, but other than that, we're on our own. The state, the Salem generally regards our area as the southern part of the state, which is odd to me. The Southerners, this whole thing about the South versus the North. We're part of we're part of a blue state, and we're the southern part where cousins marry each other. I don't understand their attitude about us, but
Yes.
they're not willing to help us when we say, now look, we know that out of the various counties in Oregon, there has to be one county that's #1 in corruption. Well, we're #1. We're #1. Okay. They say that. Now, whether you think, oh no, it's Kuzka, well, anyway, somebody's number one, and they say that we are. Now, they're not talking about you, Mike Jones, and I hope they're not talking about me. They might be talking about the Daily Courier, but they're mostly talking about county government. They're not talking about some farmer somewhere or somebody that's running a little shop where they sell pie. They're talking about government. So here we are in this place, and we had a legal counsel for 20 years that was advising the commissioners that they didn't need to clean up their act, they didn't need to follow state law, they didn't need to follow their oath of office because the state wasn't enforcing the law. Woohoo!
Geez, wonder how we got the number one in corruption moniker. Who issued that to us, by the way?
Well, sorry, it wouldn't come from just one person. It would be sort of general knowledge that in Salem that there's something wrong in Josephine County. Now, I can tell you they definitely do have that opinion when I call and ask questions about certain election law or whatever. Is our clerk obeying the law when he throws out extra signatures when it's one person and accepts all kinds of things when it's another? I mean, there's a certain bias that's introduced by every human being. I don't like to see that 646 petitions that were accepted that weren't signed, and it says on there you must sign this under penalty of law, and none of them were signed. And he said, oh, well, I accept that. That was for the ouster of Sandy Casanelli. 646. Right. And he says, well, you can contact the state. Well, I did contact the state, and they said, oh, this is Josephine County, isn't it? They could tell by my attitude. What, my attitude? I was nice. No.
Well, so I guess maybe because, I'm missing his name here, the county recorder guy.
County clerk.
County clerk. And his name is?
Oh, that's Art Harvey.
Art Harvey, okay. I don't know why sometimes a name will just escape me. Yes. Even if I know it very well, it'll escape me. But I guess Art Harvey has a pen and a phone, and he can make up his own rules then.
Well, that's interesting because Art Harvey said, well, I can't do anything about this. It was about the recall of Cheryl Walker. Whether you think she should be recalled or not, what are the rules? And he says, well, the rules are this, and I must do that. And I thought, those are strange rules. It doesn't matter what they were exactly. So I called the state, and I asked for permission, and I recorded the conversation. And I said, now, our local clerk says he must do this, that's the rule. And they said, that's not the rule. I said, wait a minute. He said in a public meeting that he must do this because you've told him what the rules are. No, that's completely up to him. So what I did is I took his testimony in public to the commissioners. Now, they're not his boss, but you're his boss because he's elected. And I compared that with what the state said. And I said, ooh, look at this. Ooh, it's 3D. And I said, now, wait a minute. This guy is telling us he must do this, and the state's saying, no, he doesn't. I guess someone could say, well, who do you believe? Well, yeah, who do you believe? The 6 to 12 people in state elections or our local guy who has, in the past, said things that were not true? Let me give you one example. It's my favorite example. I mention it every time I can about Art Harvey. So there was this gathering that took place. It was an illegal press conference because you couldn't do that at that time during the election process in the same building. And so somebody said, well, it's over 100 feet away from the ballot drop box. It doesn't matter. It's in the same building. But okay. So Art Harvey took it on himself to measure the distance. And he took out a tape measure, and he went all the way past the door to the other end of the hallway, did a U-turn with the measuring tape, and came back and said, look, 100 feet. You know what? There's no kindergarten student that would try to measure a distance by doing a U-turn at a certain point. And it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 feet. It's in the same building, and he's the clerk, and he can read the rule. I can read the rules. I can read English. He's paid to read English. And so at that point I said, I've had it with this guy. I'm not going to believe him anymore, or at least I'm going to doubt it when he's telling me something which is supposedly truthful. That's Art Harvey. That's the guy that counts the votes.
That's our Harvey, but we were talking about Wally Hicks.
Legal counsel, right. Well, so when it comes down to it, if you think that Art Harvey has done something wrong, or a commissioner has done something wrong, or Dale Matthews has done something wrong, heaven forbid, then what you can do is you can go to county legal counsel, or maybe even the district attorney who's leaving, and say, county legal counsel, the commissioners have done this. They actually, were standing in a parking lot when they took a vote. This is not transparency. This is blatantly against state law. What do you have to say about it? And the answer, when I brought that up with county legal counsel who had been here for 20 years, Steve Rich, was crickets in the corner. It was this. That's it. There's your answer. Nothing. So I'd like to think that Wally Hicks would be different.
Well, I guess that remains to be seen, and there's always the danger of jumping the gun on the guy. You don't want to you want to give him a chance to perform here, because I guess he starts tomorrow.
Right, and here's the problem. Here's the challenge. So when he was running, I said, Wally, I'm voting for you, buddy, and I'm really hoping that you're going to be completely different before. He said, well, I intend to be. And I said, now, it's way too early, but there are some issues that we'd like to sort of tell you about so you can look at the videotape, which he says that he'd, I've seen that videotape. And I said, well, it looks like obviously something that was wrong. Measuring and going around a corner, that kind of stuff. I said, so I said, let me be very careful, Wally. You probably feel it's the wrong timing. So please don't worry about saying, hey, it's too early, I'm not in office yet. Would you at any point between now, when he was first running, and being in office, like to stand up at the Weekly Business System, for example, and say, I saw that tape, and it looks to me as if there's some kind of thing that's wrong here. I said, you probably don't want to say yes. So that's letting him off the hook completely. It's not crowding him. And he said, oh, no, I really would like to say something. Oh, okay. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. He says, yeah, I intend to do so. That caught me by surprise, too. I said, well, okay, good. Welcome to the podium. Let's do it. And about a week went by, and a little bit more time, and I called him back, and I said, I'm not trying to crowd you or anything. You probably thought about it. Maybe you rethought about it. It just doesn't seem like it. Oh, no, it still seems like a good idea. I said, no, wait, let me be sure that I understand, because I want to be...
Did you guys have something scheduled, though?
No, I just said, well, I hope we'll see you soon. The next one is at 9 o'clock, and the next one after that's at 5:30, because once a month it's in the evening. And I said, well, you didn't come, and so there are other issues, but let's just, to make it easier, we'll just talk about the one where it was, he says, well, that was pretty blatant. And I said, do you still feel, maybe you've changed your mind, and that's perfectly understandable. I get it. You don't want to say anything. No, I can say things before I'm in office. I said, well, Wally, be careful, bud, because if you think you can and you say you do want to, then I'm going to sort of try to encourage you, because then we've got another voice out there. And he says, yes.
Or have an expectation, and this is where we get back to my favorite lamentation that when you connect your expectations to these people, they'll disappoint you almost every single time, and I just. Hopefully, because many of the meetings between county council and the commissioners takes place in the boardroom, the little admin sessions. Is that right?
It used to be that way, but recently, under this administration, the outgoing one was Cheryl Walker, they wanted to have every conversation with legal counsel, every one of them, in private. No, it's just not true that everything they talk about needs to be secret. And so we didn't see them as anywhere near as often. Now, I'm not saying everyone was in secret. Don't get me wrong about this. I'm not saying that. But they used to talk 2 or 3 times more than they do now in public, and there's never an opportunity to ask a question of county legal counsel as a citizen because they just don't do it in a venue where you can ask him any questions. And I have to assume that he liked it that way. Let me just get back to
attorney-client privilege, perhaps?
well, that'd be part of it, but it's not true that everything they discuss. I mean, if they're talking about something that is embarrassing for Keith Heck, for example, when he said, that we were doctoring up the videotapes, well, I'm pretty sure they talked about that in private. Well, see, there's no need for them to talk about that in private. I mean, he brought it up in public, so they get to discuss it and what they're going to do in private. I don't like that. So, Wally Hicks.
Well, we'll know shortly, won't we?
Yeah, okay. So, I get this call from Tony Webb, and she says, so, tell me, what do you think about Wally Hicks? And I said, I think he's a great guy. I voted for him. I've got a lot of expectations he's going to be different than Steve Rich. And then I imparted the story to her. She says, well, he probably didn't think it was appropriate. I said, no, wait. Well, as I just told you, as I told him that I wondered if it was appropriate. And he said, no, I want to do it. And I said, oh, well, that would be great. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. So when he didn't do it, I called him back and I said, well, I gave him some time, a couple of weeks. And I said, maybe you changed your mind. No, I still want to do it. I said, okay, great. And this is months to go before tomorrow came up. And I said, so we're going to see you soon, I guess, huh? Something like that. And he says, yeah, well, I'm going to be there. Well, he didn't show. And she says, well, maybe he was just trying to be agreeable. I said, well, after you talk with the guy 5 or 6 times, and you're giving him every possible out. Wally, I want to love the guy. Wally, you don't need to say anything. Wally, it's okay if you don't. Wally, it's okay if you're truthful with me. Wally, you don't need, just say, hey, Dale, I appreciate your asking, but stop asking. Or you could say, gee, I just want to be nice. Just tell me straight out. Do you want, oh, I definitely want to do this. Are you going to, I'm definitely going to do it. And then he doesn't do it. What does that mean?
It's a politician's dilemma. I mean, part of it is you want to be accommodating to everybody who speaks with you, and that's a toughie. But he'd be way ahead of the game if he spoke honestly.
You think?
To you, yeah.
Because we've had so much of the other. I believe in the guy. I'm looking forward to, and I'm not going to crowd him. And I've been calling other people saying, you probably should not give him 100 things. And there's people that are just dying to give him 100 things. Why, pay attention only to me. And so I'm trying not to do that. But when we've got certain cases that look open and shut, and when the state says, definitely that's against the law, well, there's a place to start. They've already agreed that it's against the law. So now what are we going to do? Well, and I wonder, too, what is the objective? Because to me, the objective isn't to slap a bunch of fines on politicians or whatever. To me, you would hope that they would know that there's a check there, and that they would that would motivate them to operate in a manner where they weren't bumping up against the check. To sum this up, maybe people notice I always try to indicate when we're probably going too long. So to sum this up, in my belief, the check is this: there's not going to be any help from the state. Even though things are written down as this is within the law, this is outside the law, the commissioners, that definition of integrity is when you do the right thing even when no one is watching. They don't know this definition. They're not willing to live by it. And up until now, they've had a legal counsel tell them, don't worry about it. That's just the people. You don't need to worry because no one's enforcing the law that you swore you would uphold. And so what I'm hoping is that it's incremental. Are they going to stop? Are you kidding me? Of course they're not going to stop. But at least then we'd have legal counsel that would be saying to them, it's one more voice. That's illegal. Knock it off.